My name is Janie Kilgore. I've been in the casino industry since 1990. I moved here from Texas. I love the casino industry. I became a dealer in 1995, and I jumped around to a lot of different casinos, but my longest job was at Bally's, and I transferred over to Paris. And between those two casinos, I was there almost 9 years. And there's just something about being a dealer. Sometimes I can't even explain it, but it's just, you know, you're, like I also say, it's like being an entertainer, because sometimes when you step up there, you're like an entertainer. You're also, not only are you dealing to people, playing games, but you're also attempting to entertain them as well. There's only one thing I don't like about the job, and that's the secondhand smoke. That's the only, it really is the only thing I don't like about the job. It's more than not liking it. It's just like one incident in particular that I had right towards when I got fired was I had 3 cigar smokers at my table, and I'd already been sick, in emergency room a couple of times, and I had told them that the smoke really bothered, especially 3 cigars, and they started laughing at me, and they said that, oh, it's just part of the job. You know, how can you not handle the smoke? You ought to be used to it by now. And so you don't get used to secondhand smoke, and you sure don't get used to 3 cigar smokes. So they stayed there and they were puffing this way, and I started crying. I guess a girl thing. I started crying, and the more I started crying, the crueler they got. And then when they finally pulled me off the game because I was crying too much and I had to sit down because I was lightheaded and dizzy, all I could think about was, I'm also an animal activist. All I could think about was, I can't believe that somebody's treating another human being the way they were treating me, and I wouldn't even treat an animal the way those people were treating me that night on that particular game. Had me to the point where I was crying, and they still would not put those cigars down. And they still kept puffing away, and they thought it was funny. They really did, and that was what I had considered the low point of my life, where I wasn't being treated even the respect of an animal. And that's when I decided to do something about it. And the first time I went to a doctor over this whole thing, I didn't know what was causing it. I could go back about 10, maybe 15 years. I really didn't know what was causing it. Then I kept seeing the doctor over and over, and then finally it was the doctor who told me that it was he said it was called the casino workers' disease. He said it's caused from the secondhand smoke. And so it was when the doctor told me what it was, that's when it all went, I went, oh, now it makes sense. Because to be honest with you, I didn't know what was causing it. I thought, oh, I'm just getting sick all the time. I'm just getting sick all the time. I started asking the customers to keep the cigarettes down. That was the main thing. When people were smoking around me, I said, could you please just hold the cigarettes down? Don't let the cigarette smoke go into my face. And some of them would be nice and they would do it, and then sometimes they wouldn't. But at first I just tried to take matters in my own hand and just try to get the customer to empathize with me and say, yeah, I'm not a non-smoker, I'm an anti-smoker. And they kept saying, oh, you don't like cigarette smoke. I said, no, cigarette smoke doesn't like me. It doesn't like me. I said, it just hurts my body and my system. And like I said, most of the time people were polite and they would hold the cigarettes down. And then if you, as a dealer, if you start beating people out of their money, which you have no control over that, then they get mad at you and they start lighting up and smoking even more. Oh, that's horrible. But it's truth. It's a sad part of the job. When they're mad at you because they're losing money, they just light up and start smoking more. And they smoke. Some of them smoke in such a way that they just build up a lot of. They puff a lot and put a lot of smoke in the air. Well, you know, this all went on for several years, and at one point, because of the complaints I filed with the OSHA, the local OSHA here, they did finally put fans on the table. And when I was at Paris, and I thought that was a big step forward. Well, any kind of step forward, because at least they put fans on the table, which would send a message that, yeah, well, let's get the smoke out of their faces. I'm an ex-flight attendant back in the 70s when you could smoke on airplanes. And I remember back in those days, I hated it then, but a lot of people don't even realize that you could smoke on airplanes. I tell people nowadays that I'm trying to do something about it because the flight attendants all got together, and they're the ones who got smoking banned on airplanes because it was the workers and what it was doing to their health. And I said, that's what we can do as dealers too, you know, because we're the ones that are standing there. We are stationary. We cannot move. And this is wrong. This is humanly, morally wrong to subject anybody to this. It was torture. It was torture. It still is torture. You know, I talk to Patty Young a lot. I've met her in person, and she did it with the airline industry. And the casino industry isn't any bigger than the airline industry. They could do it in the airline industry, we can do it in the casino industry. It's human rights, just same as like what Rosa Parks did in the back of the bus, what Martin Luther King did, what JFK did, what Abraham Lincoln did. It's human rights. And anytime there's human suffering that is caused by the hands of other human beings, it has to be stopped. And that's the bottom line. We are suffering, and we're getting sick, and we're dying of cancer and other diseases like heart disease. And sometimes people say, "Oh, you got to die of something," but I don't want to go that way. You know, I have a lot of customers that I talk to about it because I make no bones anymore. I've already been fired from the best job I ever had, so I don't care anymore. And I asked him, I said, you need to stand up and ask for them. I said, there's a lot of groups. I mentioned A&R. I also mentioned, there's another one, the Clark County Health Department. So I start throwing these things out, and I mentioned Stephanie and the Nevada Non-Smokers' Right. So there's a lot of groups and organizations out there that are trying to do something about it. Why don't you help us? If you really, this bothers you, why don't you help us? Because that's how change is made. People standing up and saying this is not right, we want change, and that's how it happens. So a lot of times I do tell the customers about these organizations, and I've also talked to other dealers about it too. I'm always telling dealers about these organizations that are out there trying to do something to help us. The main thing that it was fear. I was so scared to death that I was going to lose my job. I was scared. I was just terrified because I was making almost $60,000 a year, which is the most money I'd ever made in my life, and doing what I love, but I was just terrified of getting fired. I do remember the day that I finally did get fired. I remember the boss called me in there and he said something about one person's not going to make a big difference. And I said, that's when I mentioned, I said, Rosa Parks. Well, Rosa Parks was only one person and she made a big difference. And I remember then the management, their eyes just got really big like that. And because of those days I was being kind of like rebellious and again wanting to make the point, you know, that they keep saying, you'll never get smoke out of a casino. And I said, we already have. It's already happened. I mean, look at the poker rooms, and it's going to happen. I know it's going to happen. I know. And that's what I tell the customers too. It'll happen. It has to. Because you can't keep torturing and people, workers, the casino workers, and you can't keep letting them get sick and die like the lady who just left. It has to stop. It has to.